He says the real true Chachma, that's what Chachma is telling. Compared to this, all the other Chachmas are bottled. The Hainu Novel, she the Chinas had Taina and Iknas, Neighbors of Chachma Al-Yenim. The Taina is called Novel, the Neighbors, the Dugma, the example of the Chachma Al-Yenim. Rosenfeld says, Boy Uri Eisha Atma Vayam Yushiv Atagim Azeshu Pli Gedelis. Tagim is ordinarily it's a kasha. Everyone has. Well, it's male. Everyone has a kasha about this. My Indian Tavis Novel Tagim Ayakbos Atayda. What does Novel got to do with the Indian Kabbalah Atayda? Atma Nimlutsu L'chayayach Tividi Atagim Elu. How perfect this fits. Ikir ha'avoid of his Tam Yoshi the kiruv somebody. That belief of Chachma is not that. The Chachma said, "Oh, Shalom Melech, oh Shalom Achashkasa boy, Yachim Adam, Omar ki Bara Nechim Eish, V'lei Binas Adam Li." After he became to me, I'm only a sach. I'm a fool. Chayim also Bani Bavly, Edav Behemoth Yisimach. I'm still nothing. I'm like an animal. Chaim Ksiv, Ein Chachma V'in, and Tuna is an English Hashem. And the Nikah Chachma and Tuna is to be on the side of Hashem to drop the Chachmas. The main Chachma is not to have any Chachmas. The person drops his Chachma, they can become what? Tell him become Kushas, so they can speak in this. Baruch Hashem. Likutey Maidan Teda Kuf Chof Dalet. Arizal brings the Gemara Shemiz Bama. Tzayach the Gemara says Zamril L'Mish Menat Tzneis Chav Sameach. Say Tfilis and Zmidas and Tishpochos to the one whom you defeat Kabiyachol and he's happy. And it says Kikeshem Edabel of Nei Kadosh Baruch Hu Mefadish Sichosid V'Tainas About Koshes. A person speaks before Hashem is by this. And he talks out his, whatever is in his heart, with kindness, with pleas to Hashem. He wants the Kaviyachol to win over Hashem. Hashem has pleasure from this. From his pleasure, Hashem has a pleasure when a person gives Divrei Melitza to win over the will of Hashem. Therefore Hashem sends the person words, puts words into the person's mouth with which he should be able to win over Hashem Kaviyachol in order that Hashem should be able to receive this timing, this pleasure. Because without Hashem helping him, it would surely naturally be impossible for a person to win over Hashem. Hashem himself sends him ready-made words that are ready with which we ought to win over Hashem. So therefore, when a person starts hispaited this, he really wants to be hispaited, and he finds that he can't speak, the thing is to wait a little bit, and then he'll find that words are being sent to him if he really wants to, because Hashem wants that a person should speak words that are strong and powerful to win over the will of Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Likutey Maidan Teda Kuf Chof Hei. Arizal brings the posek v'yim Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Chluhu hayom, eat the moon today, ki Shabbos hayom Hashem, because today is Shabbos. Hayom leisem tzuhu b'asoda. Today you will not find it in the field." Wonder of Arizal. You want to learn from this posek. Mikan shechayev lechol sholei sudas b'Shabbos. This posek we learn that a person is mechuyev to eat 3 sudas in Shabbos. Ki plaso hayom ksivi. Because the word Hayom is written 3 times in this pasuk. Then so, the result we see, Kol Suda Megimel Sudas Ksiv Hayom. And every one of the Gimel Sudas on Shabbos, you have the word Hayom written specifically about it. The Ames teach us, as they miss a hint from there, Shemaylechel B'Suda Shel Shabbos Rak B'Shvil Hayom. And a person should eat the Suda of Shabbos only for the sake of Hayom, for the sake of the day of Shabbos. At times a person could eat because he is hungry from the day before. Not because he now for the sake of this meal, but because of the hunger that he has from the day before. That means at night, the night suda he might be eating because he's hungry from Friday. And also at times the third suda he might be eating because he wants to save himself, he shouldn't be hungry later on, for tomorrow, which means at night, which is already Sunday. And every one of the 3 sudas of Shabbos he should eat only because for the sake of the day of Shabbos itself. That this suda should be not because of before, not because of afterwards, but because of the day itself. Now R Nosson says, this inyan I didn't hear from Arizal himself. I heard it from somebody else who said it in the name of Rabbi Nachman. And I wrote down this Torah the way I heard it. Later on it happened, they had the opportunity to speak to Rabbi Arizal about this inyan. He himself was skeptical about this. The Omar, and he said, eating on Shabbos is very precious, very important. The Shabbos dafka you have to eat a lot. Eat a lot of good food. So we see that you have to eat very much, not to limit yourself as it appears before, just a little amount for the sake of today. The nothing else says, I understood, that his kavanah in this member wasn't to eat less. It wasn't to say that you have to eat less, and this is remember eating for the sake of the day. The techim kavanah is member zeh be a klal. The etzem kavanah that Ben Azal had in this member, he didn't explain to me. Because I wasn't able to speak to him more about this member. Papa says that it's possible that Ben Azal himself didn't retract, didn't take back the statement, didn't say I didn't say it. He only said that the wording, the way it was written, was misleading. That actually, it's true you have to eat for the sake of Shabbos, but you've got to eat a lot. You must eat very much. But that very much should be eaten with a kavanah for the sake of the kavod Shabbos. He asks, what about, let's say, there's a minhag that you're supposed to fast ahead of Shabbos. But if you have to eat, Shabbos be with the oven. Eat this is a Shabbos with an appetite. In that case, it would appear that the person is eating because he's hungry from before. So in that case, he'd be feeding his purpose. Now, what Arizal says that even in that case, too, it's also for the sake of Shabbos. There, it's obviously for the sake of kavod Shabbos. Eat kavod Shabbos with the oven because if it was because he was hungry from before, he had a better to eat before. He could have eaten before. He purposely didn't eat. So we see from there that minhag is for the sake of eating the Suda of Shabbos, not because of kavod Shabbos, not because of the Rav Nachman. So there's no steer from that minhag either. So Rav Nosson says, like, Achakach, Shamanu, Yipirah Kodesh Zal, Kamo, V'kamo, Toydus, Al Inyan Malas, Kedushas, Achila, Shabbos, Yikoda Miyad. Afterwards we heard from Arizal many Toydus about the Inyan of the Mila, the holiness of Kedusha, Achila, Shabbos. The Omar, the Fedish, the Arizal of the Fedish, and Tzrichim, the Shabbos, the Yeharbos, the Machal, the Mishtek, the Pshutai. That you have to eat Poshet. Eating in Shabbos means to eat a lot. The Achila Shabbos, Kula, Leikus, Kula Kodesh. Because the Achila of Shabbos is completely Leikus. There's no pselos there whatsoever. It's all Kodesh. I am the Hatayda Sholas of Yishum and Kacham Simon and Zayin. The Kam Mashakosa of Shom Sheika Koved Shabbos Hu HaAchila Ayin Shom. The Koved Shabbos is the Achila of Shabbos. The Yedikalam of Kemes. Many other places where it speaks continually about the mitzvah of being marbe b'Achila Shabbos. The Sefkot and Beis on the bottom. The Ayin is Sefer Negid mitzvah. The Arizal. The Chemesh is Chassidut. Shekosa B'Hediyah of the Fedish. Even though a person is eating Shabbos more than its necessity is, the person eats during the weekdays more than he should, so the Mesiris, the extra, those pselos, the chitzonim, has to show. But in the case of Shabbos, so even if he eats more than he should, it doesn't go to chitzonim at all. It's completely nivla, it's absorbed in the Evorim. That means it goes all to Kedusha, it doesn't go to Mesiris, to waste matter. The Achila of Shabbos is Kulei Kodesh. Baruch Hashem. Kutei Maran Teres Kuf Chavov. Arizal says, the Zohar become a Mekaimis, the Zohar Kodesh, in many places, Sheshitchu HaChavraya as a B'Shem Yechoizal, and the Chavraya praise of B'Shem Yechoizal, Isa, it's written there, Vayin L'Dora Katestalik. They said, woe to the day, to this generation, when you will become nostalgic. Poik Ayim V'Tishkach. Look into the Zohar Kodesh, you see it in many places. Then it also says, V'hu B'chinas Shavas Vayinofash. This is the B'china of the posek Shavas Vayinofash, and the Gemara Darshans, Kivon Shavas Vay of the Nefesh. So when the Shabbos comes, so we say Vay, to the Neshama you say that it's lost. Hainu, meaning Shemachmas B'idl HaTan of Shah Nefesh, you say that should more be Shabbos. Because of the great Tanakh that a person has in the Nefesh, you say that the additional Neshama that comes to a person on Shabbos, Okay, Maschilim, take it with his Gageya, with his Stayr, Al Abedas HaNefesh, from Mitzvah Shabbos. So immediately, with Mitzvah Shabbos, they begin to feel sad over the loss of the Nefesh, the loss of the Mitzvah Shabbos. That means that when Shabbos first begins, they already feel what the loss is going to be by Soy Shabbos. Chain HaChavraya too, Machmas Gedol HaTa'anugim VeHaSha'ashum Shekiblu Meidabim B'Shem Yitzchak. Because of the great pleasure to know they had from the Rebbe B'Shem Arizal, okay, take it from Miyad, this Chilul is Kageya. Immediately they began to yearn, they felt a sense of yearning. They already felt the tzad in their heart of the stalkus that's first going to come later on. So a male of this violet daughter, katastalik, the same dechina as Shoas Vayinofa Shivai of the Nefesh. The Shabbos first begins, they feel already the tzad is going to be because the Nefesh said it will lead. So they said, no, they felt immediately the tzad that's going to be when Moshe Feinstein comes to stalik. Every place in the Zohar Kodesh where they praised Rav Shimon Yochai Shagila Lahem Soid Nifla, where he was regaling to them an unusual Soid, Timso, you'll find She'achakach Omalahem Oich Chidusha Torah. And immediately afterwards, Rav Shimon Yochai told him additional Chidusha Torah. Baruch Hashem. Likutey Maran Tarikov Chozayin. Rabbi Nachman says, Habegodim Heim Besoid HaChashmal Shehi Shmira. The begodim, the clothes of a person, are beside chashmal, which is a shmida. Begodim are a cover, they are a shmida to guard a person. Beside chashmal. The alkein ha begodim yehi shlemim tamid, like kiruv. Yehu kilko hashmida. Therefore, the begodim should always be whole and not torn, because when begodim are torn, so it's a kilko for the shmida. Chashmal is begotten because malbush the gematria chashmal. Then the Menachem Mendel says, "Have begotten the atzmon tayven es ha'adam." The begotten themselves summon, they sue a person. Im loinizha b'shmidason lachabdon karoi la'asikon b'nekiyas. He's not careful to watch them, to give them the right cover, to keep them clean. The begotten themselves sue a person that doesn't show mala. Shada the Talmud Chacham has a Rav of Breslov Kesem Chassidut Shalom Yischayim Misa. Then they'll bring also Gedol HaAzhora Zoyis Lishma Savigodna Miksonim Ayim Yodas Simchav Tes. The greatness of this warning to guard the begotten from Ksomim, Arizal brings in detail on Simchav Tes. And Arizal says that Dina de Malchusa Dina, and Malchusa is Melech HaKavod, Malchus is Kavod. Rabbi Nachman called him Mane Mechabdu. Said Rabbi Nachman called his begotten is kavod. So we see that kavod is in the melech. Dina Malchus Dina. This kavod, this malbish, which is kavod, which is melech, is Dina Malchus. That's the one that summons a person to Dina if he doesn't watch it carefully. You have to the azhara that a person be very careful to watch the begotten from any begon. Baruch Hashem. Likutey Maran Tarikov Chav Ches. Then it also leads to the Gemara. The Gemara says, "In your Hayetzahara, the Aveda about the Yetzahara of Aveda of Tavis Meshagel, the Hainu Shetavis Meshagel, Kachlinhu li Einei v'Shavkuhu." That the Sanhedrin blinded the Yetzahara, this Yetzahara, and they let him go. The Gemara says that the Yetzahara Aveda Zora, so they controlled completely. They locked him up completely. Therefore, there's no Yetzahara nowadays. They wanted to do the same thing with the Yetzahara of the Shaita because the Sanhedrin said we don't want to have the mitzvah, we don't have the schar for it. It does more damage than good. The Yetzahara of the Zohar was machem the Beis HaMikdash. We don't want it anymore. That they were able to control through the tefillah, they were able to capture it. They did the same thing with the Yetzahara of the Shagil, and that also, Nafal B'Yodim, it fell into their hands, they were able to control it, but they found that after 3 days' time, there was no zilugim at all. There wasn't even an egg to be found. So they realized that that has to be left for the sake of the kiyum hadoyah. In order for the generation to exist, there should be births. So what did they do? So kachlinuli, they blinded it. They said that we have to have it. At least you got to blind it to control its power a little bit. Mara says that it helped at least for arayis. There should be no title for arayis, for relatives. The Beit says Nimtzo Afa Pesha Simu Es Einei Yitzhara Shonir Afa Bikenisha. Even though they blinded the eyes of the Yitzhara and the youth, still, in a sense, it remained. It's a shakul. Let it go. Let it free. This is the Bechina we see Mashdim Tzolaf Olam Banoshim Makshedim Tzas. At times we see from people on Noshim Makshedim a little. Because he has Yiras Hashem in his heart, so he lowers his eyes and he doesn't look. Still, he sneaks a look in from the side. Looks from the side. He blinds the Yitzhara who wants to look. He blinds it that he doesn't look. He blinds his eyes by depriving himself, stopping himself from looking. So the Yitzhara did remain. How does it remain? We think he was stuck on that side. So maybe there's a little bit remaining. He goes, he attack it, doesn't look, but on that side he looks. Let's shut that it was Nisha. Baruch Hashem. Kutei Maran Teire Kufkov Test. There's only the posek Eretz Eicheles Yeshivaha. The report of the Menachem was that Eretz Yisrael is Eicheles Yeshivaha, meaning Pasha that it eats up its inhabitants. They meant to say that it destroys. Arizal says, Pshat is Kishemekulim Li Had Tzadik. A person Nekulim to the Tzadik, Tzadik Emes, Af She'einei Mekabel Yevenu Klal, even though he doesn't learn from him anything, doesn't receive anything. Gam Kein Tev Miyod. His cannabis, his conscious alone is very good. Just the Emunah alone, he believes in the Tzadik Emes, that helps a lot to Avodas Hashem. The nature of the food that a person eats is that the food that he eats becomes changed, becomes transformed into part of the person that eats it. For example, when an animal eats vegetation, for instance grass, so the grass becomes changed, transformed into part of the animal. When it goes into the inside, stomach. Also, the animal, when it's eaten by a person, when a person eats the animal, the animal becomes changed, transformed into part of the person. Every place where this food goes into different organs in the body, becomes changed to the very part, the type of the organ to which it enters. The part of the food that goes into the moyach becomes changed to, becomes part of the moyach. And that part which goes into the heart becomes changed to the heart. All other organs. It's a bechinas emunah. It's a pshat meaning emunah because it causes shchon edit to the emunah. You see that edit is, if you want to have emunah, shchon edit. Zeh eicheles yeshveha. Yikshnichnas li'aretz shebechinas emunah. When he goes into the midah of edit, which is the midah of emunah, ne'achal etzla. He becomes eaten up by the edits, by the emunah. And this is hapech l'mahusa. Becomes changed to that which eats him up, meaning he becomes changed to emunah. He becomes part of emunah himself. And it's a chelik yisrael, a land that eats its inhabitants, that eats those who go into it, and they become changed to become part of a land. This land means emunah, so merely he becomes eaten up, he becomes absorbed by the edit, and he becomes part of this emunah. When he's attached to the tzadik, he believes to him. He believes in him, which means the bechina of edit emunah. Becomes eaten up by the tzadik, and his hapech l'mahusa tzadik mamish becomes changed to become like the tzadik, part of the tzadik, because he becomes completely digested and part of the tzadik. Edit itself has the same koyach, the same power of digesting and absorbing those who live within it. Therefore the Gemara says, person who lives in Eretz Yisrael, so he lives there without sin. People live there with the sins that are forgiven. Because it's a land that eats its inhabitants. One who lives there becomes eaten up, digested by Eretz Yisrael, and is changed to the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. He becomes part of the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael itself. If a person even goes Dalad Amis there, is assured of being a Ben Elam Haba because he becomes part of it itself. Chiklalen, Shon, Gishani, Kiruv, Terrain, and Spashin. I want these two so-called friends, so you see as Yud-Kei, the Mayach, the two Mechem, who are never nisparish and never separated. The two Mechem never separated. I want that these two should be close. I mean, I have to eat my goof, meaning the machnia, to make subordinate the chumris, the gashmias. To eat, to absorb, to digest. After the nefesh should completely absorb, take inside into it the goof. That the goof should become actually part of the nefesh. That the day in the mayach should completely eat up the goof. The goof should become completely changed, become part of the Neshama Kedusha, which is the mayach and the das. Where the food becomes changed, transformed into part of that which eats the food. You should be the one to feed the emunah. And what should you feed the emunah? Feed in yourself. You yourself should be eaten up by the emunah. Become, when you, the food, should become transformed into the emunah. Despite all this, even though it is true that the food becomes part of the echel, still the main thing, it depends upon the will of the person, meaning the kavanah. If his will is very strong, his will to become close to Hashem and to serve Hashem, to the Eved Hashem. Only that it's difficult to break the Tavas Gufay, but his will is still strong. Then through being close to the tzadik and the moon and the tzadik, so the bechina of achilo, he becomes eaten by the tzadik and absorbed by the tzadik. And he becomes transformed into the type of the tzadik himself. But if it is not his will at all to be Eved Hashem, then the iskavis the tzadikim will not help him at all. And he is not in a category of food that cannot be transformed into the thing that eats it. For example, a person eats an achila, a food that his nature cannot bear it, cannot take it. And this food is not digested, it doesn't become part of the person eating it. Like haguf meki, the body throws it out. Kainahu bechina zuma, which shows us bechina also, ki ena nechal kali hat tzadik, afshe mekudav esleip. He's not eaten by the tzadik, he's not absorbed by the tzadik, he's not digested even though he's close to him. Ki hat tzadik ena yochel is slave lo yumeki esleip. The tzadik cannot bear him, therefore he throws him up. The bechina is like posek bed yisrael, the bechina that says the posek bed yisrael too, kashet kol es hagoy. Even though it's a chal yishvel, it's true that it eats up, it absorbs those who live in it. Still, it's a case where the Etzra cannot be stable certain ones living there. So it says by Etzra, like, cause a guy, it's spit out, threw up the guy who lived there before. The Etzra cannot bear that this thing should be eaten by it, that should be changed as part of it. Like he mekia is saying, Etzra spits it out. So we say this from this type of thought. But then you should have a very strong Nosson to the Eved Hashem. Strong Nosson to become his kedusha, to become nechal, to the tzadik, and nechal to Eretz Yisrael, to become part of the tzadik and part of Eretz Yisrael. We have that Nosson, then we get the posek Eretz Yisrael, we become part of Eretz Yisrael, part of the Emunah Kedusha. Baruch Hashem. Gut, wir lernen die Konflamme. Person, the greater the person is, the bigger the sorry is. And also says, a person can become saved from Taivas Nida. Menachem Mendel Schneerson, Arizal, call him his goy, the safe nechshal b'yisashish. One who has gaiva, the safe is nechshal in his Taivas. Shema the ish nefesh yikora totzug. The ish will trap one who has gaiva. The Teresh Asmichus, Ish Moshe Onav Miyoid, the Tashis Dabe Aranami and the Moshe. The reason why it says first, Anivas and Moshe Rabbeinu, and it says in but Aramea spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu. They spoke about the Isha Kushis, and we took, where the Gemara says it means means the Taita. The Arizal says it means the Bas Melech Kush, daughter of the king of Kush, and we took, we did not make any Kiddushin in her. The Arizal says that's the second time of Yeseda, the first time of Hevel, second time of Hevel was the one that Cain killed Hevel for. Therefore, Tikuney is a Google of the time of Yeseda. Yeseda is a Google of, you say Keni is a Google of Cain. Yeseda is called Keni, that's Cain with the Yud, El Shem, Chachma. That was the Google of the good side of Cain. And Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, is a Google of the Isis Moshe is Moshe, Shais, and Hevel. The Google of Hevel. And this, now yesterday came back as the Google of Cain to return the time of Yeseda when she guzzled from Hevel. Tikuney, his daughter, is the Google of the time of Yeseda. That's why Tikuney is the Gmatlia Limoshe, that she was Shata Moshe Rabbeinu because she was the daughter of, well, she was the time of Yeseda of Hevel originally. The Arizal says that the Isha Kush is now meant that he became a king of Kush for 40 years, so he made Kiddushin with the daughter of Kush. But there was no actual Akicha, there was no Nisuin whatsoever. Why? Because this wasn't actually the Zivik, it was just the first Google, so he had this additional, this first time. When I come to Plain Shat, the Gemara says that they spoke about the Isha Kushis, meaning Tikuney. Why Isha Kushis? Ki Kushis are Shem Yofi Likras. She was called Kushis because of her beauty. Ma Kushi Mishuna Bi Oidai. It's like a Kushi is different than his Oidai. So she is Mishuna Bi Maseha. She was different than Yofi and Meisim. They say they took her because of Yofi, because of beauty. The Alkin did our precious, therefore they spoke about the fact that he was Polish Nishtai. He actually is Polish. They couldn't believe that it's partly Polish from his wife. It means that he had to have complete precious. Therefore, he had 2 sons and no more. So the Gemara says it was not possible anymore because he had precious after that. So they spoke about this precious, said it's impossible. So the Taita itself answers them. Ish Moshe was on of me oid. Because he was an honor that was possibly become punished in Gamri. He had no civic lamata whatsoever. His whole civic was lamala. He had kalas Moshe, he had kalas, as it says, the kalas is without a vav. Kala, that his civic was lamala. This is what the Gemara says in the head, and Takva shall Yosef and Mesinusa shall Bayaz. That the power of Yosef, the great Nisayan that Yosef had, was big by Yosef, was small by Bayaz. But the Tzadik had a bigger Nisayan. Because Yosef had with a guy. It wasn't so hard for anymore after that. Bayaz had it with a Jew who was a Penuya. And Takva shall Bayaz and Mesinusa shall Pati Ben Laish. It was difficult by Bayaz. The big Nisayan was very simple, was small Pati Ben Laish. Because Pati Ben Laish was a case where he had Nisul Mikashas with the daughter of Shaul. So it was a much bigger Nisayan at Pati Ben Laish. A matter of staying 2 years without Negiyah. You totally buy another. Why does it have this? Because the whole Indian of Bitul and Shlidas, this Taiva is totally in Anibus. And the Anova needs to begin with this. The Anova is Nitzul. Let's begin. This is what the Gemara says. Whoever has more godless, it's like Godlum Menu. Should misgabed all of it. Sort of a Taivas Niv. He has a bigger Yetzer in Taivas Niv. So this is Dami Yitzray. Yitzray means Kizahika Yitzahara. It's more very Kodesh. The main Yitzahara is Taivas Niv. The Kodesh says Ikad the Yitzray Bishal and Galo Adayam. The main Yitzahara is Gili Arayas. And in Taivas Niv. Whenever there's more godless, the Yitzhara of this Taiva is bigger. When there is Anivus helps to become Nitzvah completely from Taiva Steve, Bizarre Shmiras Abris. Kuteman Taiva Kuklaman Alf. Then it says, Sorach is Yoreh, lift at the neck, the person has to be very much afraid, fear, Kaveh that comes to him. Kaved who Saikona Gedela Saikonas Nefoshes. Because Kaved is a very big Saikona, Saikonas Nefoshes, Kihudonas Kaladinim. Because Kaved is that which is done, which judges all the dinim. Vajikosu Melach HaKaved. that the Kovid is the Melech. The Kovid of Bechinas Malchus Hadones Hakel. Kovid is the Malchus that judges all. Sedina Malchus Sedina. Yazai Hakel Chaykin Vishaylami, who's Melech HaKovid. And what oil is there? Then when a person gets this Kovid, so Mela, if you want to ask about him, who is this person, is he fit for this Kovid? Neshikosu V'nikdash Bechvaydi, that the Mikdash should become holy, Bechvaydi, my Kovid. Particularly Bechvaydi, Elam Lechul Bodai. So we don't learn that Mikdash Bechvaydi will become holy through the Kovid of Hashem, but Bechul Bodai, so the tzadik will give Kovid to Hashem. I'm sure that the Misas for the Aharon was brought the Kedusha to the Shechina. They have Kovid Yuchal Ligran by Misa Chas Shalom. Because with the Kovid they can bring to get into Misa. See that they have called Bechul Bodai, and it was getting Misa to them. And then he is weighed on a scale, and Chas v'Shalom Yifkan b'Yaakov, Yechutas Sayresh b'Yakablu K'meshet Tzorech. If Chas was playing with Chutas Sayresh and this Kovid, he wouldn't receive the Kovid the way he should. And like Chas v'Shalom Kaf Chay v'Machnas, he's weighed in the scale, and Chas v'Shalom the bad side weighs over Chas v'Shalom. Zenikra Meiznei Tzedek. This is called the scales of Tzedek. Tzedek Malchus Kadisha, because Tzedek is Malchus Kadisha, Bechinas Kovid, Malchus Kovid Kanal. Tzedek means Malchus, which is Kovid. Meiznei Tzedek, and Meiznei Tzedek, Ki Oz Nishkal Meiznayin. That this Kovid is weighed on the scale. He's weighed on the scale. If he is Zecher, he's right to it and Akash. Or Hashem. Likutey Maran Teilet Kuf on the base. And it also says, Yesh Tzadik Shem, Efurson Godel Medina Achas. The tzaddik who is very famous in one Medina, which means that he is tzaddik in that Medina, he rules there. Medina Asmucha Einecha Shel Klal. In the Medina that's close to this, he is not considered at all, he's not famous, not known at all. The Shul Medina Achedes and Efurson. And it's possible that third Medina, after this one where he's not known, there again he's very much Efurson, he's known. How is that possible? Let's pshat there. And he also says, this is what's meant in Zayre Kodesh, Mayan Benofik Me'asar Chad, the Azlim et Chesli Ado, where there's a well that goes out to one place, and it goes beneath the ground, until the well comes out, the water stream goes out at a distance in another place. But in between, so it goes to this travels underneath the roots of trees, and it waters those places even where you can't see the well. Even the places where it goes beneath the ground, even there, so smashkin the shiloshi ilonis. I mean, this tzaddik, although he's not mefursam in the second place in between, actually they are all yearning from his tzidkus, from his greatness. Or Hashem. Likutey Maran Teilet Kuf on the Gimel. There's a bit of posek of tzadikim ki oir noiga haylach mi oir nechol hayoyim. Tzedek of tzadikim is like the light that shines and it goes until the end of the day. Yashemesh bi'atzmo me'ida b'mekaymo b'shava b'tchilas hayom v'yetzayim. Him as the sun itself lights with the same power wherever it is in the beginning of the day, in the middle of the day. But in the beginning of the day we don't feel the heat so much. In the middle of the day we see the great light and we feel the heat more. Like Kamaniyahu machmas ha'oretzim of sekes bein b'nei other than Hashemesh. What stops the power of the sun from reaching us? Because the earth itself, the globe itself, is that which stops between, is the maniya between, the barrier between the sun and between the people. Therefore the light is not spread so much in the beginning of the day. Little by little until it becomes spread over the whole earth, when the earth stops being a maniya between the people and the sun. So too the light of the tzaddik shines steadily, always. Like Hamaniya machmas hamekablim. What stops the people from receiving it is not that there is something in the light itself. It's that there's a maniya in the part of those people who receive it. Hamaniya hu machmas ha'oretz sekes. The maniya is the same thing. The light of the tzaddik is like the light of the sun. What stops the light of the sun? The earth itself. Here too, it's the earth itself that stops the light of the tzaddik from reaching the people. The Elam Hazeh. The Elam Hazeh, that means the Taivas, the Gashmias is what stops people from receiving the light of the tzaddik. Keep it together, because people are sunken deeply into the Taivas of Elam Hazeh. Therefore they cannot receive the light of the tzaddik. This is what the Gemara says. Al posek megilo ofo kad eifeslo kad kalfeslo. Whereas Zechariah Novi said that he he is different than the other Nevi'im. When they came to talk about the measure, the midah of the Torah Kedusha, so the other Nevi'im said that the Torah Kedusha its space is unlimited, it's infinite. There's no limit to the Torah Kedusha. Until Chayyim came and he said, I know the size, the midah of the Torah Kedusha. Say Kaviyachol, it's possible. He said, I have the size of the Torah Kedusha. Because I found Megillah Offer, I found a Megillah that's 10 Shebal Peh, and the size of this Megillah was 20 by 10. The size of the Megillah was 20 amis by 10 amis. Now, when I spread it out, this was folded up, alpha. It's folded up double. When I spread it out, so it was 20 by 20. If you take a Megillah 20 by 10, 20 in the length and 10 in the width, and you open it up, it becomes, no more double, it becomes 20 by 20 because the width remains, the length remains the same, it's just the width. As you open it, it becomes twice as wide. Now it's 20 by 20. Kad Kalfaslo, but this Megillah, he said, was written on both sides. Now, in order to read it in one single length, you have to separate the Megillah itself, to peel the sheet itself in half, and place one half on top of the other to make it a one continuous Megillah. So if you have 20 by 20, just peel it in half and then put one on top of the other, you then have the same width of just 20, but the length now becomes twice as much. So it's 40 by 20. So the Gemara says, Nimtza kol ha'olam kuloi kirzeres echad megimul alafim u'masayim itayda. That the whole world is exactly 1/3,200th of the Torah. Because the whole world, the Gemara means the posek is kirzeres. Zeres is a half of an amma. A half of an amma by a half of an amma. Now, in an item which is 40 by 40, which is 40 by 20, which means 40 by 20 is simply 40 long and 20 wide. How do you find the square of any item 40 by 20? You multiply it. 40 times 20, width times length is equals to the square. That means that you have 40 times 20 is 800. So the size of the Torah Kedusha was 800 amis, 800 square amis. How many half by half amis do you have in a Megillah, which is 800 amis square, 800 square amis? You have 3,200. Because you take how many half by a half do you have in an amma alama? Exactly 4. Let's say a half inch by a half inch. How many half inch by half inch do you have in an inch by an inch? 4, because you take 2 of them, so you'll have a half inch by an inch. Take 4, you'll have an inch by an inch. So in amma alama you have 4 in each amma alama. But that means in each square amma you have 4 zeres, 4 half amma by half amma. Now if you have 800 amis, 800 square amis, it's 800 times 4 is exactly 3,200. So therefore the Gemara says that the Torah Kedusha is exactly 3,200 times as big as the idol. Nimtza shad Torah gedela u'lechava meyayid. So in the middle we see that the Torah Kedusha is very big and very wide. The span, the small span, which is the idol itself, limited for name Moed ha'inayim, standing before the light of a person's eyes, and it stops the person from being able to see the great light of the Torah. Although the idol itself, this tiny idol, the small span, is so small compared to the tremendous size of the Torah, still this idol can block the light of the Torah. How can such a tiny thing like the idol, which is only 1/3,200th, act as a maniyah, a barrier, a mafsek, to make chatzitza, a separation between the people, between a person, and such a big thing like the Torah Kedusha, which is thousands of times as big. Because the whole Olam Hazeh itself is very small against the Torah Kedusha, which is thousands of times as big. It's like the mushla which is brought to a small matbeya, small coin, in tachsik isa neged einecha. If you hold it against your eyes, in front of your eyes, yimna milidais haragodl. This tiny coin will stop your eye from seeing even the big mountain. Afal Pisha, Aharon, Godel, Alofim, Pion, and Command there. Even though the mountain is thousands of times as big as this tiny coin, but Nachman Shemadbeya, it meant Neged Einav, because this Madbeya is standing in front of his eyes, completely blocking his eyesight. Alken Chaytzetes Bifnei, the Iyas Hayinayim, blocks the sight of the eyes. Until he can't even see a thing which is many times bigger than it. Kain Sotu Kishmagia Ubor Lamazet, so when he comes to Lamazet, person comes to Lamazet, Nisha Shakua Shombe Heavily Ha'ilam, he remains sunken into the Heavily Ha'ilam and Taibis. Nidmalai Sha'in Taibizeh, he imagines that there's nothing better than this. Fi'elamazeh, Kotna Vihamur, this tiny nothing in the world. This tiny world stops him from seeing the marvelous, the wonderful light of the Torah, which is thousands of times bigger. This is exactly the mashal of the sun, where the earth blocks vision from seeing the great light of the sun. Although the sun is so many times bigger than the earth, what the sun is 170 times as much. The Rambam says that the sun is 170 times as big as the earth. It's like the mashal brought before with the matbeya. There was this shot in the posek, the Eidach tzadikim ki oir noiga. The way tzadikim is like the sun, it's like the light that shines. Ki oir noiga mamish. Mamish like the light. Shemesh shemeida tamid. Just like the sun which shines steadily, that's how the light of the tzadik shines steadily. The miniyah is only because of the earth that blocks it. Although the earth is very small, the tzadikim also give forth their light always. The others, which means the blocks person seeing the great light. The light is very great. The whole world is very tiny compared to the great light. Still, it blocks stops a person from seeing the great light, like the mashal of a bay in front of the eyes where he can't see a mountain. Because this earth is in front of the eyes, he can't see the great light. He would just push aside this mafsik, this tiny barrier from the front of his eyes. How? He should turn his eyes away from the Elam. He shouldn't look at the Elam, at the Havelam. He should raise his head. He should look above this Elam which is mafsik. As to see the great light of his tzadikim. Their light is much greater, thousands of times than this whole what they have all of. With the type that stands in front of his eyes, it doesn't allow him to turn his eyes away. To look above at the tzadikim. Stops him, just like the Beya stops the person seeing the mountain. This too doesn't let him turn his eyes up. The Havol and Tavis keep them down. He should look at them. Havol, Kal, Yuchal, is Salik, and Adbeya Negatina. It's very easy to pull them at Beya away from his eyes. But take it, Yida, Hana, Godly Minute. And immediately be able to see this tremendous sized mountain. To make him mamish, so too exactly the Indian Hailam, the Atayda. Should the Havora be Alma with a simple movement. Yocheli, Havid, Hailam, Negatina. We have to pass the world away from his eyes. If he just closes his eyes from this, he turns his eyes away from the Havolim, stops going into this spotless in places where he shouldn't, turns his eyes away from these types and looks up above these things to higher they can look at the air of Tzadikim, be able to see this, the great light of Tzadikim. Understand very carefully from the eights on the floor. This is Hashem HaKodesh Amar Oivi Avoy Ki Chaylam Molei Mi Oideis V'Seidis Nefloim and Eidoim. Heaven is filled with great lights and holy Seidis. V'Yad HaKtanai Midas Afnei Ha'inayim Yakeres Midas Seidis Agdem. The small hand, the small palm stands before the eyes and blocks the eyes from being able to see these great lights. But with a tiny movement, the person at will can turn his eyes above these things. He can be zecher to see the holy light of the Torah and the tzadikim. Likutey Maran Teirik of Lamadalot. Menachem says Avodah Gedol Lema Torah Til Yochid. There's a very big avodah for a person to say Torah, even for a yochid, even to say Torah to one person. Kolshkin that it's very difficult to say Torah to many. A person is saying Torah to be very careful. You shouldn't say anything that's not fit for the seichel of the person receiving this Torah. Because it's Chashon B'china of Niyut. Shemashlich tipei haseichel b'asad instant. Niyut means where he's been naive, he gives tipei hazera as a mayach to a place where he's not supposed to. And here when he gives chachma that's a tipei haseichel, he's putting it in a place where he's not supposed to. It's called the Yudah Zera of the mayach, the tipei haseichel of Atala. The einay meled etzloi klump. But I told me that the Zera is not meled. Here it's not meled by this person who receives anything. At times it's considered niyat mamish, and meled and mitzi psul possible problem. At times it's meled and it brings out a possible problem. Chas v'sholom, I should make a kabel oisai. At times by saying Torah to one who's not fit for it, the person might do a thing which is not fit for him if he calls about regret. So maybe he is meled something which is a possible. He's man chashon like a problem. Therefore, through saying Torah, Yuchal Chas v'sholom is gabed olav ayeta b'taras niyat. Shown by saying Torah, you can have a chashon is gabed niyat yetzana. Alkein tzarech l'zohar mi'oid kishayin et Torah b'rabim. Therefore, we have to be very careful in saying Torah b'rabim. Should be buddha v'yischalku, and his word should be divided. V'yishma kol echad kiyim ma shetzorach lo yosef. He should say it in such a manner that each person should hear only that which he is fit for him, only that which he needs and no more. Although he says the same words are said to every single person, it calls on the Ichnas believe kol echad v'yechad kiyim ma negei lo yosef. He says in such a manner that only those parts of his words that are fit for this person should be received by that person. And that which is not should not be absorbed by him. Moshe, if he sees that a person is fit for only a certain amount, so whatever he doesn't want to know, he could say in a lashon which he doesn't understand. Only the higher ones understand. He uses lashonos that can be fit for each one according to his needs. When Yishma Yisrael heard what happened to the Jews, what Hashem did to the Jews. What is like Yishma Yisrael? Everyone heard. This was the thing that was famous. Yisrael heard, and he was Mekabel. He took a lesson, he received it. The others heard too, but it didn't make any pull about it. It had no effect upon them. That each one that he heard, it had an effect. The others heard, it didn't have any effect. This is what the Zedek is like. Call mandem moli elamudna deshama. It's asher to the person who speaks, to an ear that hears, meaning to an ear that receives. So to a person has to say Torah to those that receive it. Those that cannot receive it, he should stop. He should avoid saying Torah to them. Zeu shekosu the Timona says kalakodu mechaveiroi. Either she will go to by Neza and Torah. One is greater than his friend, and therefore he says Torah to him. And the Yitzhak godly Menachem Mendel Schneerson is gabed olav yitzahara b'tayvus niyat kanal. Hashem you come to is gabed to this type. So therefore he shomei or follows the Buddha kanal. He has to be very careful to weigh his words carefully, to see to it that these words go to the correct people and they should get exactly what they need. Baruch Hashem. Likutey Maran Teirik Kuf Lamed Hey. Ben Azamim the posek Ekach Moyed Anime Shalom Eshklet. Ben Azamim Sgula Linotzel Migadlos L'Chabed Es Yom Tzei. A skula to be saved from gadlus, from gaiva, is to give covet to the Yom Tzei. Kabel Yentei B'Simcho Be'Achovas Halev Kiti Yecholtei. To receive the Yentei with simcha, with happiness, or with gladness, as much as he could, according to his ability. Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Shalom on Yidei Shazachar Menachem Shari Bina. It's Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Shalom through the fact that he was Zechar Menachem Shari Bina. The Gemara says in the Shana, but the Chassidut Mi'at Me'elikim, he was Mi'at, a little bit less than the Shar Hanun, which means he reached the Menachem Shari Bina. So this Zachar Lihi is honor Mi'od Mikol Ha'odam. He was Zechar to be an honor Mi'od, the Tachas of Anivos, the Abbas of Gadlus. Yentev hu Moechem de Imo Shehi Bina. Yentev is the Moechem of Imo. Imo is Bina. Chachma is Ava and Imo is Bina. Yentev is the Moech of Imo. as the Arizal says. Therefore, the person Mekabel Yentev, which is Bina, Zechel Yenov. So through this, he's Zechel Tanov. The person Mekabel Yentev, which is Bina, he's Zechel Tanov. Yentev in Chalav Bina is very close because Elam Yadei Hashem and there's Tevis Imi. Ima. How to be Mekabel Yentev, which is Bina, he's Zechel Tanov. Ki Yentev Bechinas Sog, Shem Samach Gimel, with K Vav K, with the Yud K, spelled K Yud, and Vav, and K Yud. That's the third one. There's 4 Shemis of Sog Marbon. The second Shem is Sog, which is Bina. The first one is Chacham, the second one is Bina. The second Shem of Sog, which is connected to Elam HaBriya, which is Bina. That's the Shem Sog. Im HaYud Isiyas, with the 10 Isiyas, Yud K Vav K, spelled out Yud Vav Dalet K Yud, so the exactly 10 Isiyas together. That is equals to the Zimatli Yentev. That's like the Arizal says. Shehu Heipach Gas Ruach. The Shem Sog is the opposite of Gas Ruach. The Tikuney Zohar says that the Yentev, which is the Zimatli Sog with the Yudasias, the Sog is opposite the Gas Ruach. Like the posek says, Kuloi Sog Yachtav Nelachu and they say Teve Yamechad. That Kuloi Sog, the Indian of the Shem Sog goes against those who are bad in Sog, which is the opposite of Gas, the Gas Ruach. And therefore together, the Zohar Kodesh says, together Sog and Yud is Zimatria 73. Ga. Gimel Ayin, the Ga b'chol ha'sheloi. It says the sudden Ga means to attack. So together this attacks the opposite, which is Gas Ruach. Ki Yentev mevatel ha'gadlus. Because Yentev is mevatel ha'gadlus. This Shem Sog mevatel Gas Ruach. Ki teva ha'katnus, she is vatel l'gabe gadlus. The teva of katnus, anything that is small, the teva is that it becomes bottling, yes, and it is big. How can Shimmy kiruv is tzadik and spad gadlus? Therefore, the first becomes kiruv to the tzadik, so merely gadlus becomes bottle. Ki ayadei hagodol shalat tzadik and spad gadlus. Because through the great light of the tzadik, he becomes completely bottle. That means his gadlus becomes bottle. Hu bechinas is only in the autumn and echbo. The tzadik says that when the autumn see me small and ketanim see me, they hide. They become completely bottle. I know they shiloyim for the tzadik and it's nechbo and magtanim. When they by seeing it upon him and tzadik, so they small ones become hidden. Yeah, katnus is battle if they got gadlus, because the katnus becomes battle for gadlus. This is also Kedushas Yentev. Kedushas Yentev is totally dependent upon tzadikim. These are the other Titan which you should announce. The Dosh Arizal, particularly Isom, Ela Atem, not particularly Isom, but particularly Atem, that the Yom Titan are totally in tzadikim. They're the ones who declare the Yom Titan. Nimsa Shayam Titan Kulim Tzadikim. So maybe see the Yom Titan are totally dependent upon tzadikim. The Alkin Shemikabel or Mechabed is the Yom Titan. Mekabel Oil HaGodol Shayam Titan. Shuv Bechinas Tzadik Kanal. Therefore, the Mekabel or Mechabed the Yom Titan. If you see the great light of Yentev, which is the light of the Tzadik, this is battle HaGadlus Shalais. The Gadlus becomes bottle. Yeah, Katan is bottle Gabi Gadlus. The Alkin Chayev Odom Lihakdol Pereyad Beregel. Therefore, a person must receive it upon him as Rebbe and Yentev. There's both are one. You can Koyach Yentev totally tzadikim because the main Koyach Yentev is totally in tzadikim. But then the Yushiv Shafi and Mashik should be well. This we can understand well. He kashed it one in Sukkah. Otherwise, a Shama Mishabeach Haniyas Atzlon and Benego. The Yoda says that Rabbi Eloi came to visit Rabbi Eliezer on Yentev. Rabbi said to him, "Why do you come to me? I praise the Atzlonim, people who are lazy on Yentev. Shneimah v'samachta b'chagecha." Pasuk says you should be happy, and happy means to be together with together with your family, with your wife and children, together with your home. Those who are lazy do not leave their homes on Yom Tov. Then my praise. Why did you come to me to visit me on Yom Tov? You went away from your home, but you're not being kind of self to Chagecha. The Gemara asks a question of Elazar, but Haman of Yitzchak said, "Chayev Odom lihakdol pereyad beregel." Yitzchak said that he is the person to receive his Rebbe on Yom Tov, to visit his Rebbe on Yom Tov. So why is Elazar angry? What the pasuk says that why did you come to me? It's not Yom Tov, it's not the Shchedesh. We see from this pasuk that the person is supposed to be mikabel beregel. Ayin shemeitiv. Look at the Gemara very carefully, and you'll see the cash clear. The Gemara answers there that the ozu be osi b'yanei. When do we say that the person must be mikabel beregel if he can go and come back on the same day? If he can be mikayim, it's not a chagecha also. As I said, I praise those that don't come. It's in the cases where they can't come back to the home on the same day. Rabbi Nachman says, now, to understand the kasha well, Ki af shehu berachik meya parso meiraboy b'yentay. Blood like Arizal said that even, what was his complaint? That even a person who is loy ozlo v'osi b'yentay, even a person who cannot go and come back in the same day, still should be able to stay home. That was his title. Even a person who was 100 parsa away from his Rebbe and Yaakov, he's 400 miles away, and he cannot go and come back in the same day. I'll call Zehu Lechuyev Hakim Tanav, but I saw the same chiv to receive his Rebbe, to visit Rebbe Yaakov, to receive the ponim of his Rebbe Yaakov. Hainu Sheyakir Tanav B'Rego, Shel Bechina Shenu Sheyachabed Es Hayentov. He should be makir, recognize the ponim of his Rebbe Yaakov. How by any Mechabed the Yentov. He receives the grace of Yentov, which is the ponim of Rabbi, because Yentov is totally in the tzadikim. He kedushes Yentov, totally tzadikim canal. Just to make this Yentov is totally in tzadikim. Upshimik kabel as a Yentov, who kabel a bit mamish. What he sees Yentov means he's mamish from kabel to Rabbi. By the zen is spatel hagadlus. Through this, the gadlus becomes bottle, as we said. He teva hakatnas, she is spatel gadlus canal, because the katnas becomes bottle, can make gadlus. So really, since Yentov is mevatel the gadlus, the answer of the Gematria is Sogam Yudaisis, which means that the Koyach HaTzadikim is a Vatal Gadlus. So, maybe by a person who Mechabed the Yentov correctly, with that again Vatal Gadlus. Zepay Nish Ki Ekach Moed, Ni Mishalem Eshpait. Ki Ekach Moed, Keshai Kabel, Es Yam Taiv, Moed means yet, Rabbi Mekabel, Yam Taiv, Ekach, I will receive, I will take and Kabel them, and Ni Mishalem Eshpait, Hainish Eskim Anova. Mishalem Eshpait means Rabbi Mezechet to Anova, the Vatal Gadlus. Bechinas Meisholem Eshpait, another is Bechinas Meisholem Eshpait. I will rule correctly. K'mashkos Chazal, Ma'idach Siv Ha'umnom Elin, Tzadik Dabeilun. What does that mean? Mayas Odom Be'elam Hazeh. What should a person do with Elam Hazeh? Yas Atzmai Ki'ilin. He should make himself like a person who can't speak, a person who is dumb. Should remain silent. He was the Yochel, I think, after the Taida, that the Taida also should remain silent. Come and limit the rest of the posek. Tzadik Dabeilun. You have to speak Tzadik, Divrei Taida. There you have to speak. Yochel Afilu in Higis Data, Yagis Data. I think that why you should be in Higis Data, you should have Gaiva Chaz Shalom. And the Maya Meishalem Tishkuto B'nai Odom. The end of the posek is Meishalem B'nai Odom, and that the Gemara says the person should rule himself Meishalem like a Misha. Misha means flat lands, very low, not like a mountain that's high. He should consider himself very low. So we see the Meishalem Tishkuto means Anibus. Meishalem Eshba. Meishalem Eshba means I should have, through the Kabbalah Yom I should have Anibus. That is Shat, posek Ekach Moed, Ani Meshalem Eshpait. Idesha Kabel Hatzadin. So being Kabel in Moed and Mesilcha, Idesha Eskele Anova, Gezecha Anibus, Shulchan Meshalem Eshpait Kanal. There Gamkin in your Moed Makamacher, posek Eretz Echel Yeshvero, we said before in Tzedek Kubamet, Ki Katnus bottle and Gabi Gadlus. The Katnus, every Katnus becomes bottle and King the Gadlus. And there Chavan is Hapef and Chus HaTzadik. Mela when he is bottle and King the Gadlus, King the Tzadik, so it's Eretz Echel Yeshvero. So he becomes digested by the tzadik. He becomes bottle completely. He becomes part of the tzadik completely. His own God becomes bottle. That's if he receives the pnei tzadik. Each man opinions here also. But also says in this inyan, if we kusha the tzadik, yochla harigish kushas yentes. If he's mikusha the tzadik be'emes, he can always feel the kedusha of yentes. Ki tzadik who bechinas kushas yentes cannot, because the tzadik is the kedushas yentes. Because the yentes is totally in tzadikim. The pnei rabbi is the inyan of the regel. They have similar Mikush the Tzadik who Yesh Shifus. Sign for a person to tell whether he's Mikush the Tzadik or not is if he has Shifus. He tell Katnus, he is Battle of Megadus Kanal. Tell Katnus become Battle of Katnus. He can ask Kashus who Ahavo. What's the Shabbos Kashus and the Tzadik a minute? Kashus is the Ahavo, Sheyehav, and the Tzadik Ahavo Shmaimu. He should have a deep love for the Tzadik, a complete love for the Tzadik. Mashikosu Benafshek, Shuda Benafshoy. That his nefesh was kosher Benafshoy. Yaakov and Yosef it says that the nefesh one was bound to the other. He loved him like his own nefesh. That's how we find that nefesh Yosef was nixed with nefesh David. And there the pshat is an union of Ahava. The Ahava is a tzadik Yosef, the Ahava Nosson. His Ahava doesn't tzadik any more than his Ahava Nosson. Like Rav Nosson about Nosson, that Lisa mostly may Ahava Nosson, that your Ahava was greater and higher madrega than Ahava Nosson. Arizal, the very highest kashus, the tzadik, then there was his kashus, so the tzadik, Yochel and Kabel Kedushas Yenter Kanal. He could receive the Kedushas Yenter. Therefore, I think the Kabel today, Rabbi, and Yenter, the Rav of Breslov says that a person can be in the Kabel Rabbi Yenter, that means he can go mamish to the Rebbe, away from his home, even though Loy Oz will be also be in there. He couldn't come back that day. and still being a kayim v'samachta v'chagecha, because samachta v'chagecha means that you have simcha v'yantiv. You're going to his Rebbe, you become Pnei HaYantiv. Rabbi is Regel. That's the simcha. What's the simcha? Ato basically with your wife, Avas Nosson. So if the Avas tzadik is bigger than Avas Nosson, so doesn't come Ato basically you together with your family. So in this alone, in Rabbi Regel, you can be kind of mamish. It's not like Ato basically. You can Yantiv tell us dik, and because Neder tell us dik, and you can begin with Yantiv, who the Halos, begin with Malchus Kedusha, may they klipa is for Vatal Malchus Sedacha. Because the main begin with Yantiv is the Maled and Malchus Kedusha. From the klipais, the Vatal, the Malchus, and the Dalet Malchus Sedacha. Like we had in Tzad Lamed. Ki Malchus Nikras, Dalet Malchus is called the Eish Dalet. They give the less Flamigam Klum. It's poor, it's nothing, the less, it has nothing of its own. That's Malchus. A Melech B'Le'on, because a Melech means a Bechina of nothing. A Melech itself means nothing, a Melech without people. So Malchus means nothing of its own accord, just what it receives. Nimsa the less than a Klum, it has nothing of its own, except what it receives from others. But if he has an then he's a Melech. A Malchus, the Gdusha, she Bechina Dalet, the Malchus, which is the Bechina of Dalet, the less than a Klum, Nafla, the Nasim, and Dalet Malchus, the Klipa. It fell as an Asila, that became a Bechina of Dalet Malchus, the Klipa. Will be entered for the Lehala, as Malchus the Gdusha, may Dalet Malchus the Sitracha. And Yantiv is the time the Ma'ale Malchus the Gdusha, from the Dalet Malchus the Sitracha. As the Shikosa, this the Pasuk says, Vayishli Eis Tshuvas Hashana, the time of the end of the year, after Nisan, the time when Tefillah begins to grow, the Eis Tzeis HaMalachim, when the armies go out to give food for their horses, Teidish Yantiv Nikra Tshuvas Hashana. Then also Yantiv means the Tshuvas Hashana. The union of doing tshuva. Keep kol hayamun taitin and you made din. Because all yamun taitin are a time of judgment. And tshuva is for when you have din. Meshikosa the Dalet Krakim Havanidin. The Mishnah says that in 4 times in the year, in yamun taitin, so the world is judged. The Pesach, on Pesach they're judged for Tvua. It's decided in heaven how much Tvua should grow. And the Atzedes, on Shavuos, so they're judged for Tetis. So Tetis should grow. And the Chag is then in Olamayim. And on Sukkot, and then it's about the water. The Shoshana, so there's a din for every person alive. So we see that Yantiv is an Inyan of Tshuva Sashana. Each Yantiv is an Inyan of Din. The Tzadach Moshe, the Tshuva. And in the time of Din, you have to do Tshuva, the Ayin, the Amalchus, the Klipais. And there's Batal and Mishalta. And through Tshuva, so the Malchus is out, and the Klipais, and then the Mishal of the Klipais becomes Batal. Mishal, the Razal of the Bela, Tshuva, Shem, and Karebes is Agula. Tshuva is great because it brings close to Gula, which means that the Malchus goes out of the Golus of the Bain Klipais. It becomes free, then he's mal of the Malchus. Shenig Olin, or Yadei Tshuva, may have Malchus the Klip. Because the Malchus is Nigal, there's a Gula for Malchus, through Tshuva, it's saved, it's taken out, redeemed for the Malchus of Klipas. Zeh Lies Tshuva, Sashonat, Lies Seis, Hamalachim, Sha'oz Yetzi Malchus the Gdusha, she bechinas Dawa de Bene Klipas. They say Hamalachim, the Malchus of Gdusha goes out from Golus and the Bene Klipas. And there's battle Koyach Adal Malchus at Rachel. The Koyach of Malchus becomes bottled. Ikel of battle Koyach Malchus Amolek. Tikus of battle Koyach Malchus Amolek. It's the main that Malchus at Rachel. Chihi Koylalas Adal Malchus, because Malchus Amolek is killed only for Malchus at Rachel. But she costs because Reish is Goyim Amolek. The Reish is Goyim Amolek. The Amolek is the head of all the Goyim. That's why the Zohar Kodesh says, Tikuney Zohar, that Melchamo la Hashem ba'Amolek. The Shetevus Ayin Beis. Why against Amalek? Because that's connected Ayin Beis Umeis. The Ayin Umeis and the two Kail and Esav and Yishmora. Amalek is a Kail for all the Malchus Sitracha. The Alken Kisha Horag Shmuel is Agag Malach Amalek. Therefore Shmuel killed Agag the king of Amalek. Then the Pasuk says, Vayishat Seif Shmuel is Agag. Okay, the Shasha Chotchim Adalot. That Shmuel cut up Agag into 4 pieces. Meaning Shechotach had Dalad Malchus Sitracha. They cut off the Dalad Malchus Sitracha. Valyi Lahem Koyach and Mishola. They have Malchus of Kedusha. They should have the Koyach and Mishola to be unique to the Malchus of Kedusha. She bechinas Dalad, which itself is bechinas Dalad. Ki Hela Malchus of Kedusha Meher. He was Mal Malchus of Kedusha from them. Then the Yantif Canal. This is all done on Yantif. Zel Vayeshasei. This is Shat the word Vayeshasei. Vov Yud to Pula. The Vov and the Yud shows the action, the verb. Because the Yud is Al Shem HaOsid. Yud before the Shadish means Osid. The Vav in front of the Yud is the Vav HaMahapech. Mahapech the Osid to Ova. So Vayeh means that he did the Ova. Shasei, Shosaif is the Shadish. Tevu Shosaif. The word itself, the Shadish is Shosaif. When the Sheteva is Shavuos, Sukkot is Pesach, Shem and Tevim. This is Sheteva is Shavuos, Sukkot and Pesach, 3 and Tevim. Oz Yetzli HaMalchus HaKedusha. Why does he use a lashon by Shasef, Dafka? Because Shasef is these the Titan, which then the Malchus HaKedusha goes out free. The Seif HaMalachim. Kiyenta is Henyan Meidin, Shul Bechinas Yida, Bechinas Malchus. Because yet there is the Meidin, days of judgment, the Aruch Zohar Nidain, which is the Bechina of Yida, Bechinas Malchus, Pashikos of the Mole, Meido Shal Malchus. So therefore we see that Yentaiv is Din, and that's Yida, that's Malchus. Yalkeinem about Amalek, Vayizani Bechakol, Nach Shal Machnechem, Lo Yore Elikim. But Amalek did not have Yida. There was no Yida there. He could Kreichel, Hey Machmas Shalai Hel, with Malchus Gusha, Machmas Shalai Hel, Hamias Elikim. Shabchinas Malchus Canal. Take it Kreichel Amalek, why? Because the Jews were in Malach, Malchus Gusha. They didn't have Yidas Elikim, they Malach, Malchus Gusha. Yalkeim Bechol Yenta, Yesh Dalad Mitzvahs. And therefore, in every Yenta, since it is all totally in Malchus, which is Dalad, so therefore there are Dalad Mitzvahs in every Yenta. The Pesach Dalad cases. The Sukkah is Dalad Minim. Sukkah, you have the 4 Minim, the Lunanesik. The Shavua is Limit HaTayda, Shavua Dalad Bechinas. Shavua is Yad Limit HaTayda, Shavua 4 Bechinas, so Limit HaTayda itself is 4 Bechinas. The Pasuk says, Arizal, Vayisapna, Hechina, Legam, Chakora. They wish to saw, looked at the Tayda, and he counted the Vayisapna, he counted the Isias. The Hechina prepared for creation to the Tayda. Chakora is when going deeply inside of the Tayda. These 4 Bechinas are connected. Malchus, Shul Bechinas, Dalat, Sheyitzas, the entity, the Likutey canal, which is corresponding to the Malchus, which is the Bechina of Dalat, that goes out to the Yotis and the Likutey. And this is all and yet the Talmud Chacham named Bechinas Malchus. Since here there is Malchus, Talmud Chacham, look at Bechinas Malchus. Bashem Arizal, Man Malchi Rabbona. Who are the Malachim, the Rabbona? Ki Hei Mal, the Masa Malchus, because they're the ones who are Mal of the Malchus. Al-Kenik Kedushas Yentev, Nasa Al-Yadon. Therefore, the Kedushas Yentev is done through them. Al-Tikli Aysamala Atem, Yentev B'Cholim Tzadikim. Ukshemik Kabel Kedushas Yentev, and more than the Kabel Kedushas Yentev, Yeshbay another Shifos Kanal. Then he has another and Shifos, because Yentev is a battle of Gatos. Zero Ekev another Yedes Hashem. This is Shet in the posek, that Ekev another. But another is a result of the Ekev Yedes Hashem. Yedes Hashem, you have the Anibus. What is Yeda? Yeda is the famous Malchus Canal. Either the Bechina of Malchus, which is the Yenta, which are the Chachamim. So now the Chachamim person is there to Anivus, to his Batlas Hagadas. The Avraham Avinu Torah Gamkin Alzeh. Avinu also was Tzaddik, also for this, in Mala Malchus Kedusha. But not after Dalad Malachim, Lahalas Behin Malchus. He was pursued it for Malachim to the Mala Malchus Kedusha from them. The Yotzin, and the Yitzhak Yishmael, Yaakov Yisov, from Aharon, and came out Yitzhak Yishmael, Yaakov Yisov, Kivegad Bobanim, corresponding to the 4 Bonim of the mission had Gada, Chacham, so forth. The union of Avraham taken Shachris. The Ben of brings in Teda Lamed. Shachris, which Tevis, Chacham Tam, Rosh Hashanah Nebasha. Das is says Min Oichem on the Wad Khan, Fozen is like hated El, but Teda Mishnah is like Kinim Lamed and Shah. All this paragraph is clearly explained in the Teda Lamed mission is like Kino. And I mean also the Ayadeh, Niftach, Alach, Moshe Makshal, Leila, Glubi, it's Chayim. It is sitting mal the Malchus Kedusha. So in the case of Maksha Leila, the woman who has difficulty in childbirth, this so her rechem is open and the childbirth becomes easier. As is brought Geshem Sheyesh Sidim Medalsis Labayis, Kach Yesh Sidim Medalsis Laisha. Just as there are hinges and doors to a home, so too does the woman have hinges and doors. And come up like this in the one of the Chayis. Rabbi Shmuel says that a man has a Machayvot of 248 organs. A woman has 2 tzidim and 2 dalsais, which means a certain evidim that come, evidim of childbirth, that are in the form of hinges and doors. These are names given to them. Remember, she has 2 and 2, that's 4, so she has a total of Asian and Beis evidim, 252. The Kiva says there's also a 5th one of Teach, Moshe Feinstein, the key to the doors, which is another organ that a woman has, and these is 253. But we see from here that the union of childbirth is connected with doors. We may have Beis Dalsin, Nasa to this Mem Stuma. These 2 Dalits, if you put 2 Dalits together, one next to the other, one upside down and one straight, so you have, it forms into a square, into a Mem Stuma, a closed, the final Mem. Shesham Netzad Havlad, and there the Vlad, the child is created. Ein Sham. The Tzorach Lachtech HaMem, the Shnei Dalsin, Kadei Sheyetz Havlad. And then you have to cut open this Mem Stuma, to 2 Dalits, the blood, the child should be able to come out. Male Makshava means that the mem cannot be opened. The Bezer by Yeshasef, Chot Chema Dalit. Yeshasef, he cut Dalit, Shechot Chamem, L'Shnei Dalsin, he cut them into 2 Dalits, to 2 Psachim, the opening for the child to come out. So Mela, by being Mala, the Malchus, Shasei, Chotchim Adal, he's Mala, Malchus, Kedusha, through that, Mela, he opened up the Mem Stuma, and that, the Makshavel is able to give birth. The Hovein, the words of the Ben is able to say, that, being Paseach Halechem Shal Makshavel. So school of Makshavel to be able to give birth easily. Nosson also says, be it in Yezeh Shal Makshavel, is Bar Makamachem. Explain this in Makshavel, we explain more in detail in a different place. Baruch Hashem. Likutey Mayan Teirik Talmud Bavly. Ben brings the Mishnah, Al Todin es Chavecha Sh'Digim Kemei. You shouldn't judge your chaver until you reach his place. Zehu Mashomer Arizal. Ben, so this is what the Gemara says. Have you done it? Called him a kaf schus. Should have done every person a kaf schus. We're good. Hikshiyesh machlekes al Adam. When there is machlekes against the person, tzarech lachker limtzei zechus b'chaveda. He has to be cheket, search or find a zechus and his chaver. The person against whom the machlekes is should seek for his chus about the person who is chelik against him. And Masha chelik alav, they don't like kafsus. It should be done like kafsus, the person who is causing machlekes against him. Ki machlekes la'yimon mishnei pon. Machlekes is caused because of one of two reasons. Either because his chaver is bigger than him in the ma'ila, the alkein chelik alav, al shlehi gilo madriga. So therefore he's chelik against because he didn't reach his madriga. Therefore this person who this nechmak has to try mishtadel to reach the madriga of his chaver, but they should both be equal. Then there'll be no machlekes, because when two are the same madriga, so there's no machlekes between them, only when they're different. All the following are at times, it's the opposite reason, he's greater than the chaver is chelik against him. And machlekes, machmas shechavedi metzkanabed, and machlekes because his chaver is jealous of him, his chaver reaches madriga. Yalkin said of the kafsus, there has to be done as chaver the kafsus, so the zehu mala chaver the kafsus, and his mala is chaver to a kafsus, which means to a madriga of schus, of goodness. And the madriga achas, they're both in the same place, which means one madriga. It's like the vadili machlekes, and the shuli won't be in machlekes. Machlekes turak nach mashem mishulim zemizeh. Machlekes is because they're both one different than the other. Either because he's bigger than his chaver is bigger than him. But if they both be at one place or madrega, then bad they be machlekes, there should be no machlekes. Keep it double echad ain't shaykh machlekes. One thing is not shaykh machlekes. Nachman the kasha, Arizal said that they're one of the days before. I think that it's impossible for two to be in the same madrega. Then you know that happen always. You can't have two exactly in the same madrega. One person goes up, say he pushes the other one up. It's mal the one below, and so forth. So Arizal says that we could say perhaps that the fact that the one below, the pnimius of the one below is netak, it rises, becomes chitzonius to the chitzonius of the one above, that too means the same madrega. Mala, the pnimius of the one below, his madrega of chitzonius, that too is like they're both in the same place. True, it's his chitzonius, the other is pnimius, but still his mala has to become his chitzonius, so they're on the same place at least. Well, madrega, although one is pnimius and one is chitzonius. The other says, you shouldn't judge your chaver until you reach his place. Either one of the two cases we mentioned before. Either you should try to reach his high madrega, or else you mal the one below you, say your madrega. Keep it over because in one case, in one thing, it can't be machlekes unless there's two things that are different. By being malas chaver lekaf schus, either will be that his chaver will do tshuva, should machlekes, we know machlekes, or she will mapola, or else will have a complete mapola. By being lekaf schus, by treating him well, so it's like pouring coals on his head. Being mal lekaf schus, so either you bring it up to a madrega of your own, or else we'll have a complete nefila, which means the machlekes come bottle anyhow. You should be done, which means then you don't have to judge to rule, judge him. Here mishpat mamish, because it's mamish a case of judgment. Here do is a madrega done in the soda, because it's not before his mala, a person doing the madrega, so they judge him in heaven. Balkein Bozeh Shat Adonai Sabekaf Schus, Yet Amalei, when the Reggae is to go in. By the fact that you're done a Kaf Schus, you bring it to Haima the Reggae, don't it Oisai. The male in heaven too, they had done him, they judge him to decide where they should go out. According to what the Mishpat will be in heaven, that's what remains. Which means that either they'll judge it in Mala to Haima the Reggae, so you'll be no Kaf Schus, so that means he goes up, or else, or else we'll have a complete nefila. But in either case, by your done a Kaf Schus, there'll be a complete shalom between the two. Baruch Hashem. Likutey Maran Teri Kufam Zayif. Men is rubbing the posek Chalki Hashem Omarti Lishmad Vedach. Men al Taitis Hainef She'achelik Kalimal She'yeshli. Every person has in him a Chelik Kalimal. This Chelik Kalimal that I have, Omarti, Mali says to me, Mulamed is he and teaches me Lishmad Vedach to obey, to recayim the words of Hashem. Chalki Hashem, Chelik of Hashem Kalimal. Teaches me to keep obey the words of Hashem. Each person within himself has a voice, there's a clear telling him to obey the word of Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Likutey Maran Teri Kufam Ches. Pasuk says L'cho, Ma'alibi Bakshu Ponai. Shash HaKodesh Peshlichus Sof. But L'cho, because in your shlichus, my heart says to me as a message from Hashem, Bakshu Ponai, Hashem says, to search for me. Because to get what kind of heavenliness is within a person's heart. Tzul means the creator, Lavavi is in my heart. One who has a pure heart, my heart is empty of any evil, his heart is pure. He can foretell the future through that which his heart tells him. Because when his heart tells him the words of Hashem Mamish. This Pshat in the Pasuk, L'cho Omar Libi, in your shlichus Hashem, which means in your name, which means the word of Hashem comes to me through my heart, Bakshu Ponai, search Pnei Hashem, L'cho B'shlichus Chakanav, Kimasha Halev, Hashem Mamish, because what the heart says are actually the words of Hashem, because there is heavenliness, Tzulavavi, heavenliness in the person's heart. We hope and understand what Kedusha a person can get from his heart by purifying it. Baruch Hashem. Likutey Maran Teri Kufam Tes. Ben rubbing the posek tzadik b'fam of Yehalech v'yasam denach domov. Ben al says ki kora the Shabbatahu, the covet, the greatness, the preciousness of Shabbos is. In the weekdays when there is a shlita, a ruling power for the chitzayim, for the klippas, the person does a mitzvah, so the klippa is yearning from the daglin of the mitzvah. It means from that part of the mitzvah, we just call it daglin, feet. He called mitzvah kamishleim because every mitzvah is a kamishleim, a complete force from head to foot. Then when the klipa is yearning from the feet, it takes away the power of the feet from the regel of the mitzvah, so the mitzvah doesn't have any power to go up and have the reglayim, the feet, to go up and down before Hashem. Because the klipa took away the regel of the mitzvah. It's like leha of the malchus of kedusha, the mitzvah goes down, mabas to the klipas. Shabbos, when Shabbos comes in this battle, Shlitas HaChitzayim in the rule of the klipas, it comes bottle. Arizal, Ha'araglin, the mitzvah, Shehoyu B'sech HaChitzayim, B'chol Sheltamehem. Then on Shabbos the klipa becomes bottled, and the Raglin leave the klipa. They go up from the Chitzayim, which they were sunk into during the weekdays, from which the klipas were yearning. The Arizal, mitzvah, Ma'alachas Megash B'chol, the mitzvah goes up and comes before Hashem. There's there in Toshim, the Shabbos Raglecha. Toshim, the Lion will come back because of Shabbos. Shabbos, the Shabbos means because of Shabbos, Toshiv, and Taxer, Haraglin, Laitziam, the Lion and the Lion will come back from the benefit of the Azai Ola, HaMitzvah, Vailam, Degash Baruch, and the coming for Hashem. Degash Baruch, which the Sheabo, the Mishta has pleasure out of it, Af, in necessary, they cut and should be cut, but it was done by the smallest type of Jew. Ufli Kavona, Ushlemus, Haroi, the Mitzvah, even though it was done without Kavona, without Kavona ways. Mitzvah should be done, and calls the Yesh, Degash Baruch, and Tiny God will be a Mitzvah. Hashem has a very great pleasure from this mitzvah. Like a father who has a lot of pleasure, a lot of hanor when he sees his son first beginning to walk. He doesn't walk right like a grown person. Still he has a lot of pleasure when he sees him beginning to walk. Kach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem Yo'id B'chol Echad Mi'Yisrael K'shoyis HaMitzvah. Hashem has a very great punishment for every Jew who does a mitzvah. V'hinei ha'chelech b'midbar Mokim She'ein derech Ina Yachol Lazar derech Kevusha Yidei Pamei Raglo. Now, in the case of a person going in the desert, where there is no path, he cannot make a path, a completely trodden path through his footsteps alone. Unless he goes very much and very often in the same path, then he works out a complete path there. The mitzvahs they call tzadik. The mitzvahs are called tzadik, but you also call it tzadik. See that the word tzadik means mitzvahs. Zero, there's a shot in this posek tzadik l'fona v'yahalach. Mitzvah hilachas l'fnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. When this tzadik meaning the mitzvah goes before Hashem, Azay v'yosem l'derech pi'omor. Kadosh Baruch Hu oisem hitamei raglo derech. Hashem, because of his power, because of his love for the mitzvah, so he makes already a derech for the raglo of the mitzvah. He makes derech, because derech means a path that is already formed, a trodden path. The path is walked on a lot. He makes a derech which is kavusha v'rab, which is used a lot by many. Machmas gedol hata'anugim v'hashashuim sheyesh by Kadosh Baruch Hu mitzvah, because of the great tanug, great pleasure that I know that Hashem has in the mitzvah. Hashem makes from the footsteps, the raglan of the mitzvah, he makes a derech kavusha. This is Pshat. Hashem will make from the Talmud, from the raglan of the mitzvah, will make a derech kavusha. You have this inyan banichas, because there, the Arizal says that the inyan of what makes this mitzvah become a derech, what makes the chizuk for the raglan on Shabbos, the mitzvah of achilas Shabbos. The person eats on Shabbos, achilas Shabbos gives chizuk to the raglan. That's what the Gemara says in Shabbos. Like the kochi, the tishkach benigni. Like the kochi, the medayik, the kochi, the chewing food. Kochi means the gum, the teeth. You eat. Well, on Shabbos, tishkach, you'll find the night, you'll find it in the feet. That's Pshat. That the Pshat is on Shabbos, if you eat a lot, the achilas Shabbos will be sucking the raglan. The raglan, the mitzvah becomes completely the sukkah, will be able to come before Hashem, and Hashem will be mishtashevut, will have a no lot of things. Baruch Hashem. Put him an tzadik put mem. And I bring the posek in the years of Yad kol odam yachtaim lodas kol anshi maseil. Every person will sign, will seal himself. It means that a person will sign himself each act that he does, and this he'll be notified of when he comes before the Bezdin Shomara. Ki tzadik, every one knows the tzadik yatzma himself. The yeshua sigah, you can't be masik the tzadik himself. Ki ein b'ishum tfisa. It's impossible to take this, to have a tfisa, an understanding of the tzadik himself, because he's higher than our understanding. So the people of the kiruv to the tzadik, a person can understand the greatness of the tzadik. By seeing that the people of the tzadik, are anshei maisa, they do mitzvahs and gedayim mishleim, they're complete Yerushalmi. So then they can recognize the greatness of the tzadik. And these people, we could have a tfisa and asad, can understand it little. Because the Elam itself means Tamidim not so far from the people yet, from others. They're not so far from the Tamidim, they are far from the tzadik. The person who wants the truth, they can recognize the Mama the tzadik through his Tamidim. The writing on a stamp itself, it's impossible to read it. Because the letters of the stamp are on the opposite. But when they press the stamp, they hit the stamp against some wax. Then you can see, in the correct form, the letters and the pictures that are carved out on the stamp, the seal. When they read in Ksav, so they understand then what Ksav is written on the Chesed. The posek of the Yad called Odom Yachtaim, HaTzadik, they can call Odom. The Tzadik is called Kol Odom. Because of Kizeh Kol HaOdom, the Gemara says, the world was created for this, to obey this Tzadik. So really, Kol Odom means the Tzadik, the Yad Kol Odom Yachtaim. They were Das Kol Anshi Ma'aseil. Anshi Maisa, Shabbat Tzadik Ma'aseil, his Anshi Maisa, Tu Chaleido Isai, Mashla Chesed Kanal. You know, to know the Tzadik, like the Mashla B'Stamp. Again, the tzadik between the chayes and the tzadik is also called a stamp, but because of the tzedtzov, chosom, the Bris Kodesh. Tzedtzov is descendants, he sealed, he stamped with the sign, the symbol, the ice of Bris Kodesh. The tzadik who man not a bris. The tzadik is one on the Shem Bris Kodesh. There is one that's reflecting the bris. So then we see that the tzadik is called Chosam Bris Kodesh. The Chosim is one who is Shem Bris. We see that the tzadik is called Chosim. So Adam Yachtaim is that the tzadik who is through the Chosim of the tzadik. How can you get to reach the Chosim which is the tzadik? Well, but that's what she must say. No. She must say the tzadik, and you can understand a little bit the matter of the tzadik himself. Baruch Hashem. Kutemen Tenikut Memalach. And it says in Yizke, she yagish be emes koyach hatov. Person who wants to be zech, should feel the emes, the pain, the suffering of his sins. Hainu kishayimel es arvas mavava. Still being mauled to cut off the part of his heart that is stuffed. Every person who has does wrong, so maybe his heart becomes stuffed. Instead of being pure, it's stuffed up. It's called arla, the same as the arla on the Bris Kodesh. He calls man shini by arla liotum, as long as his heart is stuffed, it's impossible to feel the emes, actually the true pain of his sin. But when he will be mouth, he will cut off the stuff, this part that stuffs up his heart. He will believe, and he'll have an opening in his heart, an empty place. As I yadigish love may be emes good will give it. Then his heart will feel the emes, the great pain. He is started, he is chad the emes. Then he'll feel far suffering, and he'll do the emes tshuva. It's very good la chavruta. Then because of his great chavruta, because of the great regret that he'll have for the sins. Yagishu kan kol halavove shel kol hatipos shenimshu imenu u'macholaga shenimshu, and the hearts of all the tipos that came from him, all the zera that came from him, no matter where they went to, Yagishu shel makom shein, they'll feel there wherever they are. Hein oisom shenimshu imenu v'nitzavah mehem bono mimim b'nei adam. Both the tipos that came from him, which were created his own children, human beings. The tipa is there that when Nimshach went to a different place, to the Klipos, the Yam Shom Yesh Lahem Leiv Ush'ar Evanim, and there too, these tipa is there, and I tell it, Chazashom also have there wherever they are, a heart and other Evanim. It's like a Sheyim Elis Levavai, when he will mal his own heart, he'll cut off the part that stuffs up his heart, the Yadigish Levavai good and K'eba in his heart will feel the great pain. The Yatzchim and Stein and his Chalab Yemen begin to feel sorry and to regret the emes, and Yagishu Shon Kol HaLavovish Shel HaTipos, and all the lovers of these tipos will feel too. Because Vada Lahem HaEmes Hechem Uton U'Mokem HaTilefes Shel Tachtias, they'll begin to realize the truth, where they are, the place in the Mokem of impurity and Tumah, the Shel Tachtias, the lowest Matadega comparable to Gehenna. At first, these tipos that came from them became the Mazikin Tim Maziki Alma. These tipos are turning into Mazikin, the tipos there. And they imagine that it's good for them, because they are Mazikin. Because they think that it's good, they go out to the Mazik the world, they have free reign, so they imagine that it's good. Like a Hakak, Shneima Levavim, when their heart becomes Nima, becomes purified by Shneima Levavim, with the fact that their father, the one that brought them into existence, the fact that his heart becomes purified, they feel where they are. Mazikin means they're down in the lowest klipas. Look at one of the klipas, when they're feeling the kainin and staya, they begin to moan and to cry over their lot. There's a big tumult that arises among them. There's this chat in the posek of Mol Hashem Alekecha Eslavovcha Ve'Eslavav. So that Hashem will mal, cut off the arla from your heart and the heart of your zerach. Hashem will cut off the arla of his heart. Yimel Gam Levav Zalai. So will also cut off the arla from the heart of his zerach. His children or whatever the zerach is. Wherever the zerach is drawn to, whether it became people, it gave birth to children. So his children are supposed to feel also his children because of the fact that the heart of their father became purified. If the zera was drawn to a different place, those hearts still become they also feel. Yes, the man of the sugal was one of the sugal for this, the slack of the Arizal is in the month of El. The El, the Shekayas is Lavav Chaves Lavav. But it's your heart and Lavav of the Zera. And the Sheyim Hashem is Lavavoi, the Lavav Stam HaToli Boy, not Mavav Zaret, but Mavav Stam. Wherever this Zera went to, wherever it went to, they should also become Nimo. And the Halev Shematipas, the Ezel Lokash and Mishchol, the Lev Atipas, no matter where they went to, in Dimshim Mishachol, the Sabam Lehem, Bonam and Membre Adam, but they became children, human beings, Yeshimishchol, Chadashol, and Lokam Ache, where they went to a different place, Mazikim. The Gamahim Bona, the Hin Puyumai, they're also considered as Bonam, one was found at Toli in him. Alking Shnifta and Odon, the person of Nifta, time of the Stalkers, time of his funeral, they go after the Mita, the coffin, and they pray in the Allah, my Bonam Mamashim and Odom. And those who say that too, all of a sudden they cry over him as though they were his children, like human beings.